From Jefficho Films. It's Christmas time, thus began my search for a Christmas movie. I was this close to doing Lethal Weapon when I found this British 1984 gem starring Edmund Purdom, who played Gribba in Attor the Fighting Eagle, and it's about a killer who kills Santa Clauses. I mean, if I wasn't already sold. So let's review Don't Open Till Christmas. This movie starts out with a Santa and a woman in an alleyway, and they get into a car and start fooling around. Now this is Christmas. We hear the breathing of somebody watching them, and they even see him and tell him to get lost. And then they get stabbed. The holidays aren't for everyone.
Go on, back off!
Then we're at what looks like a Halloween party with all the different costumes, but there's a Santa who's about to sing, and this masked dude with a blade on the end of his stick shoves it through the back of Santa's head. Guess he didn't like us singing. At the New Scotland Yard, they're going to question Kate and her boyfriend Cliff about her dad's death. It's a short scene and we learn nothing, and then we get another Santa death, and it's a good one. Inspector Harris gets home and his housekeeper shows him that a gift came for him that day. It says don't open to Christmas. So the next day he's back at it, at the yard.
Guess what he answered with that damn superiority of his? Perhaps we can assume then that the killings will just stop and give us something to look forward to next Christmas.
Kate is still checking in on the investigation, seeing if they found anything about her father's murderer, and her boyfriend Cliff is a suspect. Sergeant Powell gets a phone call from a news guy, and it's just more cryptic crap. And then we see a drunken Santa in an alley, and he's just laughing and gets a gun put in his mouth and shot. Guess who's laughing now? Giles from the Daily News talks to Kate. Does he just not have a last name, or is he the killer?
Kate Briosky?
Yes?
My name's Giles, Daily News.
You startled me.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Can I ask you some questions?
If it's about my father, I've been told not to say anything.
Harris is walking the streets at night, and then we see Kate and her boyfriend standing in the streets playing the flute for money. They're not poor. One of Cliff's buddies runs into him and takes him out for a drink, and then invites him over, and he's taking photos of this nude girl, and Cliff tries to get his girlfriend to take photos with her, and then she storms off, but he stays around. The cops are chasing them for some reason, and Cliff ditches her and they hide. She runs into the killer and she's really not wearing anything but the robe, so he checks her out, but he doesn't kill her. Police find her and comfort her. Why not go look for the killer? They arrest her for indecent exposure, and the next day the investigators are asking her questions about the attack. These questions are pathetic, and I have little hope for this investigation.
Can you remember how tall he was?
Oh, he was quite a big man.
About my height?
Yes, yeah, about your height.
Yes. Okay, well, you've been very helpful. No, you just stay in bed and rest. I'll see myself out.
Some older dressed Santa who still lives with his mom is talking to a girl who dances behind the glass. This conversation is very weird, and he can barely even get into it before he just gets stabbed in the neck.
I'm not really a model, I'm a dancer.
A dancer?
Yeah, you want to see? If you want to see any more, cost you another $5.
Next, Inspector Harris is talking to Kate at her apartment, and Cliff admits to assaulting his buddy in front of the inspector. Oh, he's a smart guy. Kate asks to talk to him privately, and then we see Giles going through the desks at the New Scotland Yard. Powell comes in and interrupts him, and he says he's from the Evening News. Didn't you say you were from the Daily News? I mean, if anybody's paying attention to this guy's already lied. Doesn't have a last name, though he does admit to being called Giles Morgan now. So, I mean, I already suspected this guy's my killer. I'm just saying. Giles says that Powell should put a uni on his partner and have him followed because he's up to some suspicious shit. So, Powell puts a uni on Giles and then he follows his partner. Oh, now we got a drinking responsible Santa who gets on a bike, but then he gets chased by some punk kids who steal the bike away from him, and he thought he was safe, but he gets chased into an art museum and stalked by the killer. Amidst all the scary art pieces, he finds a dead woman that he bumped into earlier, strung up and topless, and then he gets stabbed. I mean, he was only killing Santas earlier. I think this might be one of the added scenes, because it makes less sense. We get an awkward conversation between Kate and her boyfriend, and Inspector Harris tells Powell that this might be his last case because his boss wants to put all the cops out on the streets in Santa outfits. That's pretty dangerous. Then we get a pair of cops dressed as Santa, and one of them gets killed with a knife boot and studded gloves, and the other one gets a bottle to the face. The eye effect is actually really good and creepy. Then we see Kate and Cliff playing music at the market again. You're not even poor. They even said your dad was rich. You're going to inherit all that money. That's also why Cliff was the suspect, because he's going to get some of that money too. Sergeant Powell talks to the booth girl, and she says that the killer was wearing a mask, but she could recognize him because he has smiling eyes.
You're telling me that a man can stand in front of you, commit a murder, then turn around and walk out, and you don't remember a single thing about it?
I do remember one thing. His eyes. They sort of smiled behind the mask.
She ignores her escort and goes on without him. I guess she needs to make a few bucks and go back to work. The killer must assume that she can identify him, so he goes to her work. While she's explaining the rules, she can see his smiling eyes.
You want to talk? Talk. You want to see my tits? That's an extra $5. For 15, I'll take everything off, and for 50, anything goes. What you do on your side of the glass is your business.
He didn't kill the model, and now there's a daytime chase. I think he's becoming a less efficient killer. He manages to pull her into a stairwell and then into a building, and he ties her up, and she can't breathe. I'm not sure how.
You were wearing a mask!
Now you see, it's too late. You have seen my face.
He wants her to think about it before he gets back. We never saw Cliff get arrested, but Powell's having him released because now he thinks after getting off the phone, he knows who the killer is. Also, Harris is now off the case. We get a lot of drunk Santas in this movie, and this one's just running around the theater, and the killer's doing a cat and mouse thing here. I don't understand that. Why not just kill him because you hate Santas? I'm sure it'll get explained by the end of the movie why you hate Santas, but you're just becoming less efficient. Then we get a band playing. Why did they raise the trapdoor though, other than to reveal the dead Santa? Kate calls Sergeant Powell and says that Harris visits the Parkland Mental Hospital, and then she points a finger at Harris and says because of her investigation that his name is not a real one. The killer returns to check on his dancing girl. Aw, he does care. And Kate goes to see a doctor, I assume to find out that information about the mental hospital thing, but that was done after, so maybe they didn't put it in the right spot. And then the killer finds a not drunk Santa in the bathroom at a mall, and he chops off his penis with a razor blade. Not a good way to go. Kate visits Harris at home. Brave girl if she thinks he's the killer. He tells her that he's been suspended, and she mentions that Cliff's been acting like he's involved ever since they thought he was. Then he offers her dinner. Oh, I thought they were going to cook dinner at his place and let us to believe that he was the killer and have a good suspenseful scene, but they actually go out to dinner. How do you even get reservations? Because it is Christmas Eve. Cliff sees them there, but then he leaves. Kate's back at home now, but Giles got inside her house with his crazy eyes. Apparently he's Harris's brother, and Harris changed his name to hide their connection. Powell calls her and she tries to reason with Giles, and then she grabs the phone, but before she can tell him anything, well, she gets stabbed a lot. Kate's death is kind of odd now that our dancing girl is our final girl. Powell finds her dead. He also had Harris followed, so he knows it wasn't him. And then he follows Giles into a parking garage, but he falls into a trap. The killer brings our dancing girl some food, and she promises not to escape, and crosses her fingers. Like, you couldn't just lie to him and not cross your fingers? And then she hits him on the head with a block of wood and runs up the stairs. And this is a very odd way to kill off our killer, but it's a very long fall. How's he alive? They don't care, why should I? Harris wakes up and he gets a flashback as a kid. It's Christmas time and Giles and Ian are getting gifts and they give Giles a knife. He's a little psycho, you shouldn't be giving him a knife. He finds Santa banging a girl and his mom walks in and Santa was his dad and knocks her down the stairs to her death. And now is Christmas Day and Harris goes to open the gift from his loving brother and it's a Santa music box. And a bomb. The end. This film had a lot of strange history attached to it, such as Alan Lake, who played Giles, had a lot of personal demons, had a lot of drinking problems, and then he got himself clean and got back to acting. He was a very promising actor at the time, and then at the end of this film, he committed suicide. It's messed up. The film took almost 2 years to complete, and the original director, who was also the star, quit the job. And then Derek Ford took over, but was fired after 2 days. And then the distributors hired Ray Selfie to complete and direct it, and had to bring the original director/star back in to finish it, I'm guessing for the ending. He also didn't go on to direct anything else after this movie.
What's happened?
Sharon, the model you met last night, was attacked in the street.
Attacked? Who'd attack her?
Maybe you can tell me. You recall how she was dressed.
Santa Claus.
Belinda Mayne was actually in the movie Crawl, and she played Vella. I knew I liked her from somewhere. Mark Jones was decent in this, but after the movie, he stopped acting. I'd say his career highlights was in Star Wars Empire Strikes Back, where he played Commander Nemeth. In the end, I imagine a lot of critics considered this movie to be a complete disaster, but this was exactly what I was looking for. A Santa Claus going around killing people. I mean, you could have rewrote this and actually done it properly and had it really like a really good movie. I think there is a really good movie in this, but the production hell that it went through and all the chaos behind the scenes, I mean, it couldn't have been a good set to be on. Definitely a movie I'd like to see get remade. You wouldn't even have to up the budget. You could keep it pretty low. Maybe add some star power. Well, as always, thanks for watching. And hopefully your Christmas has less drunken Santas and much less murders.